For those of you that don't know me, and I think probably most of you do, Julian Smallshaw, Head of Educational Development at the Institute of Quarrying, and I'm going to be talking about continuous improvement and hopefully the way to achieve sustainable profit improvement. So, first of all, a little bit on the content. We're going to talk about just an introduction to continuous improvement, some sort of project goals, what areas can actually achieve continuous improvement, some operational improvement reporting, examples of improvement measures, and then a summary at the end. Now, we haven't got an awful lot of time here. We're sort of around about 20 minutes or so with a few minutes of questions. So this really is very much an overview. So, is anyone actually involved in continuous improvement or has been? Hands up. Okay, yes. Fine, okay, one or two people. So, what is it? So, it stands for something that can improve efficiency and profit, hopefully on a year-on-year basis with a business or company. And what you're doing is actually trying to get the best out of your resources, looking at ways of reducing your cost base, rationalising, looking at sales as well, and also hopefully increasing income. Now, I can remember years ago when I was an operations manager for Hanson, I was involved in something called process engineering, and my site, a site down in the southwest of England, Titherington Quarry, was the first site within Hanson to actually implement or start process engineering. Process engineering is now called continuous improvement, but I can remember getting involved in it. It was something that had actually originated out in the States. Hanson America had been brought over back to the UK, and it was an eye-opening experience, I have to say. Now, it's progressed on from those days in the early 2000s, and certainly companies, for example, like Hanson, have taken it a step further and very much believe on a worldwide basis in continuous improvement and the benefits it can actually bring. So we're going to look at two specific areas here. One is operational and the other is really technical and sales based. So when we're talking about operational improvements, we're looking at things, for example, like reducing fuel burn, minimising downtime, plant downtime, process knowledge and control, and also the sharing of best practice, which is a very important fact, something we didn't do back in the early 2000s. And then we're also going to look at things like the pit balance side of things, so getting that balance between what you produce and actually what you sell or what you can sell, and possibly also looking at things like niche markets. So those are the sort of things that we would look at when we talk about continuous improvement. So that's what it is. So it really is an all-encompassing it's an all-encompassing fact. We bring everything together. We're looking at everything really from first principles to really the finished product. So there's a little statement there, your ideas on how to make the site perform better and how best to implement any changes that are needed so that you can actually make changes. So when we look at project goals, what we would be looking to do would be to build a continuous improvement culture within the business environment. We'd be looking at, as I've just said before, sharing knowledge and best practice, not just between sites, but also between managers and employees as well. Very importantly, we'd support this with a structured training program, and a structured training program can take various sorts of forms. One is that when you're actually capturing information, you need to ensure that the people are trained to be able to do that and they understand actually what they're doing. They're actually gathering information. That information is then passed on to a team of people that actually analyse that information, interpret it, and then implement any potential projects moving forward. So there's quite a heavy training program that needs to be put in place. Before all of that happens, a team of people would most probably come into the site and actually set a benchmark. So you actually need to know where you are within the site in terms of its actual operational performance. That also goes in terms of the accounts as well. You need to very importantly increase communication between sales, technical and the production team. And that's not always done. Now I remember again years ago when I had my operational hat on, we had a very close working relationship, the operational side with the sales side. And we always used to make sure that at the end of the week, or at the beginning of the following week, we'd sit down with the sales team and actually run through the stock, look at where we've got problems and issues, and see the best way of sort of dealing with problems we've got on site. Now, maybe that doesn't happen as much these days because there are probably fewer of us doing more, but again, it's just stressing the point that contact and the communication between different departments and the lack of that silo mentality is very, very important in this process. Also, looking at achieving profit improvements year on year across the site. So there would be, if you hadn't gone down the continuous improvement route before, then certainly there would be probably some quite big gains to be had initially. But you need to get this momentum. Maybe the gains maybe not quite so large as you move forward, but certainly you should still be getting gains year on year. And then, delivering this every year, trying to look at lowering your cost of production and optimizing your revenue. So those are just the points I've just covered through. So those are your project goals. So what you're going to concentrate on, what are you going to be looking at? Well, really, it even starts before the drilling and blasting. You're actually looking from first principles, you're looking at geology, you're looking at the rock. Not only are you looking at your rock, but of course you've got to be looking at drilling and blasting. If your drilling isn't right, the rest of it isn't right. Very simple, very straightforward. I mean, the amount of places I've gone into where people have still been drilling vertical holes, and people have argued vertical versus inclined benefits. There are plenty of benefits to be had by inclined. Plenty of people don't drill them, even in this country, but certainly abroad. Very simple in terms of blasting, looking at explosives, the use of explosives, looking at initiation, also looking at drilling patterns, and certainly a company here just along the way here that would be very helpful in ways of optimizing your blasting, looking at your fragmentation of your rock, etc. So yeah, drill and blast, load and haul, and again you've got companies like Finning here. It could be Komatsu, could be Volvo. Have all the software to be able to help in terms of optimizing your load and haul fleet and how that runs. So you run all the way through this process: crushing, conveying, screening, transport and storage. And the thing that we didn't cover actually when I was doing process engineering was the sales side. We actually didn't get that far, but again, sales is a fundamental part. So it's really a complete whole experience, and you need to be looking at each particular section of that process. Okay. So, looking at drilling and blasting as an example, getting the balance right between your fines production and your oversize, getting that nice happy medium, creating level floors in your quarry, understanding the characteristics, the breakage characteristics, the fracturing of the rock, and then getting this balance between how often you blast and also perhaps the amount of explosives used. Again, you don't want to be using too much explosives. Again, it's a very costly product to waste. So again, it's all about that balance. But again, you've got companies that are very able to help in this area with specialists. So optimizing blasting, making sure you've got that level floor. And again, you'd be amazed at the amount of sites that you go into and you don't have a level floor. This creates other problems: loading, hauling, damage to tyres, suspension, transmission, all of these sorts of things. Getting that balance right. Loading and hauling, I've just said, there are plenty of programs that manufacturers and suppliers produce these days that can help. Looking at optimizing your actual fleet itself, so balancing your loading equipment with your hauling equipment, making sure that is right, making sure you've got the right number pieces of equipment to work to get the material up to your primary. Looking at ways of reducing fuel consumption, monitoring data. These days now, again, most new mobile plant, dump trucks, etc., have this GPS connected, being able to monitor all of the characteristics of the machine, looking at knowing what downtime it is, looking at how productive that piece of equipment is in real time. So monitoring the data, looking at the driver performance, making sure that the driver is trained. And again, the amount of times I've seen where, in fact, there's a company we're working with outside the UK where they've invested a huge amount of money in plant simulators, mobile plant simulators, in actually making sure that the operators can actually operate that equipment safely but also efficiently. And they have had massive benefits in doing that. Production has gone up, downtime has gone down. Making sure dump trucks are not part loaded, make sure they're loaded to the right capacity. So all of these sorts of things. Haul roads again as well. Looking at haul roads, looking at not only haul roads but gradients, widths, rolling resistances, making sure all of these things are right. Potholes, making sure the roads are clear, clean. All of these add up. Crushing. Challenge people. When you look at crusher settings, why have you set it at that particular setting? Is it right or is it wrong? I mean, you'll soon find out when you start to interpret the actual data that you're getting from belt cuts and gradings. But challenge it. Oh, because it's always run this way and it's okay. Challenge. Some people don't like it, I have to say, but that's what you have to do. Can you improve the settings? Can you change the settings? Are you running that machine at maximum throughput, maximum output? Are you making sure the machine's being choke fed all the time? And all the other issues you get with not being able to feed the machine correctly, and all the imbalances you get. Do you need multiple crushing stages? Do you need to have this amount of crushers in your process? Again, it's just challenging all the time. And you'd be surprised, if you challenge people, what information you get back. Screening and washing, again, this is all simple stuff, and you'll think, well, I know all this. Is the screening media the right media that you're actually using? Is it right? And does it suit the purpose that you actually want it? Can savings be made through changing screen media, perhaps? Is that screen pegging? Are there other issues? Are you getting the throughput through the screen? Are there other ways of trying to sort the issues out and sort the problems out? Are you getting wear in certain areas of the screen? Or maybe can you look at another question? Maybe can you look at high value material being reclaimed through washing of low grade material? We all know about scalpings and how the AGS levy has forced us down the route of washing scalpings and actually getting higher value products from what was a waste product. So again, just challenge and just look at ways that potentially you could improve the process. And again, products and sales, and I can always remember always seemed to produce a lot more of what couldn't be sold, and I couldn't produce what could be sold. I think that was probably the right way around. Going back to the communication issue, again, very important, making sure that you're talking to the sales department, making sure that they understand some of the issues and problems that you've got.
What does help is hopefully if your sales team has got an understanding of the production process, then that always helps. And perhaps if you have a better understanding of what they're selling out to the market, again, that always helps. So again, communication, absolutely paramount. Maximising specifications of low-grade products into high-value products, we've talked about that. And again, like I said before, maybe there are niche markets that perhaps haven't been looked at before, which could be. Just trying to find sales for some of those products that you've got issues with. Identifying new markets for existing products. And again, it's all about trying to get this balance of sales and production. And trying to reduce, if you can, those excessive stocks. So obviously they're on at a value, and also minimising that potential waste. So again, these are just questions. These are just things you should be thinking of as part of the process of this continuous production theme. Variable costs, so again, looking at ways of reducing variable costs. Again, simple sorts of things we'll be looking at, turning things off when they're not required, particularly through stock reducing downtime. You'd be amazed, again. Conveyors running with nothing on. Hopefully, and certainly with modern plants now with a PC control, usually these things happen. So that's good. Looking at any sorts of unexpected costs you might have, and then challenging them. Why does something break down all the time? What is the problem? What's the issue? There's obviously a reason for it. Looking at leaks, looking at faulty meters, investigating what kind of causes you might have in stoppages and downtime, and then just actually, again, challenging, finding out what some of these issues and problems are, and addressing them. Running the plant at 100%. And we don't always do that, but getting the maximum production through the plant. Above all, making sure your plant is well maintained, free from spillages. Checking conveyor belt loadings, making sure conveyor belt loaded, but running at the right volume. Are you having issues in terms of drag? Is there spillage? Is there unexpected wear? And again, going back to the maintenance issue, things like, bearings, lack of grease, all of these sorts of things. And I can remember a few years ago, I wasn't a massive fan of auto loop systems. I think probably because they weren't particularly reliable. But moving forward, things have certainly improved. And in fact, the last one when I worked for one of my breeding plant hill forests before I came to the Institute of Quarrying, and we put some auto loop systems on the dry stone pump there, and it was brilliant. Very, very good. It worked very, very well. Very reliable these days. And the plant's actually going to get greased. So things like that. Again, just questions to be asked all the time. And can you identify the improvements? And I bet you can. If you go on site, sometimes we're always too busy. And I think if you take a step back, try to take a step back, you'll be surprised at what actually you see. Sometimes you're a little bit blind to it. Just take a step back. You'll be surprised at what you see. Looking at each one of those processes in life. So there are three pillars within this continuous improvement. You've got technical and commercial. You've got tools to identify, analyse and implement the improvement. And you've got a culture of improvement. You must have the culture. People must buy into this, because if people don't buy into it, it won't happen. Communications are a key, and part of this boils down to behaviour. absolute key. So everyone's got to buy into it, everyone's got to understand the process, everyone's got to want to make it actually happen. You can actually record these improvements in different ways. This is actually a card system, a CA card system, but there are other ways of doing it. And in this particular system, somebody will actually see that it's an issue, they'll write it down, they'll put it in the rack, and then it will be reviewed and implemented, and then of course monitored. A few examples of operation improvement here. There's a few examples I'm just going to run through here. You can see where these dots gone. I think you probably can read there, but there's one example there. This is a way of actually obtaining a sample from the belt without having to stop the belt.
And you'd be surprised at how this adds up to savings in terms of lack of downtime of that piece of plant. So very simple, but very, very effective. Another one here, I mean, I like this one. I mean, I can't remember the number of times that, the conveyor belt stops because metal's been detected. You walk up the belt and there's someone there fumbling through the rock to try and find the piece of metal. And someone came up with the bright idea of a security one. Go over it, buzzes, find it, pick it up, off you go. There's another example. Making best use of land, and in this case, this is a wind turbine that someone's put up on the quarry. It's all very environmentally green and very sustainable these days. So something that would go down very well in green people's eyes, absolutely. So making best use of a piece of equipment or a piece of land that you don't particularly need. I've just seen one near me. It was a UK coal site, and they've just done exactly the same. Put a wind turbine on. Doesn't look very nice, but they put one up anyway. Simple. Again, a lot of people are doing it, which is great, but a double check when you're connecting up to prevent the potential of misfires. Very simple, very straightforward. Remote control of a breaker. Okay, again, it's something that was put into a plant which saved a considerable amount of time and took the operator away from a potential hazard. Worked very well. Another one here. How many transformers, these little transformers you've got around the site, around the plant, and they're always on. Again, quarry here decided, okay, we'll lock these off, we'll turn these off. And okay, one doesn't add up to very much, but 10 or 20 does add up to quite a lot. And there was a considerable saving to be had by locking off these transformers around the site. And then this one here, again, another one, another view, a Pecker, this time with an extended Pecker that can actually penetrate through the rock and actually sort the blockage out. So again, health and safety was a big issue here. Downtime was another major factor. So especially made chisel end there, but it worked. Camera system installing on a dump hopper. Again, so the operator could actually see what was actually going on in the dump hopper. Again, very simple, very straightforward, but it did help to reduce downtime. So in summary, continuous improvement, you have to have this cooperation between all the different departments. You have to have cooperation between technical, sales, and operation. You have to get the involvement of the workers. You have to get them to understand. There are massive gains to be had, massive benefits to be had, and you can get them year on year. It can be through improved sales, cost savings, initiatives, some of which we've just seen a little bit earlier on. All of these things must be supported by training, good advice and support, and that has to be fundamental in everything we do with continuous improvement. To get the maximum benefits, it is a long-term project and it is ongoing. There have been considerable savings to be had by a number of large quarrying companies certainly over the last few years. Multi-millions of savings to be had through continuous improvement. So it does absolutely work. We also at the Institute of Quarrying can help in this area. We've got programs that can help companies. So if companies feel that they need a bit of help or a bit of steer in the direction and push people in the right direction, then the IQ Academy can help in this area as well. And that's me summed up, I think. So if there's any questions, please fire away. Richard.
Julian, what about in my experience was to get that many years ago, the best thing I ever saw was when a company involved the workforce in the costs. So you had the quarry manager who had a cost target, and if he beat that target, he got a bonus. Now that may sound a bit daft, but actually it worked a treat. You could then bring it down to the section leaders. Now, people reacted and said, me involved in costs? No. But when you got them involved in costs, for example, a simple one, you're getting to the end of the financial year, the big loading shovel bursts a tyre. If you buy a new tyre, your budget's going to go out the window. So what do? You ring up the OTR tyre man and see if he's got a good second-hand tyre that will last for the next 6 or 9 months. And you put that in, and at the end of the year, the company meets its target and so on. You involved people in the choice of crushers. I mean, how many times have we seen people put in vertical shaft impactors because they want a good shape, only to find they've got 50% of dust left on stock that they can't sell. So it ain't the right decision. No. And get the right, and if you're going to buy a loading shovel, get the driver to come round with you when you're going to buy it. Because if he's involved in the choice, he is going to look after it. He's going to make sure the damn thing works. You know, and not say, oh, boss, that load of shovel you bought last year was a load of bloody rubbish. He's not. So this is something I think we in the industry perhaps could do a bit more.
Oh no, I think you're right, Richard. And it's all about buy-in from the workforce. I mean, you have to have them involved, and it's all about behaviour, attitudes, and all these sorts of things come into it. People talking to each other, cross boundaries, cross silos. So yeah, absolutely. Without that, it really doesn't work. But you're quite right. Getting the workforce involved in choice, in choices of equipment. I would agree 100%. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, get the buy-in from them.